The sky turned red at exactly 6:47 a.m. on March 15, 2187. Captain Junho Lee was drinking his morning coffee when the alarms started screaming across Seoul Defense Command. He dropped the cup and ran to the observation deck. What he saw made his blood freeze. Massive ships hung in the atmosphere like dark clouds. They were bigger than mountains, and there were hundreds of them. The Rakesh had arrived. All units, battle stations. Junho shouted into his comm device. But even as he gave the order, he knew they were not ready for this. The first strike came without warning. Beams of white light shot down from the ships. Every military base, every defense station, every weapon facility exploded in seconds. Junho watched helplessly as his screen showed base after base going dark. In less than an hour, Earth's military power was reduced to smoking ruins. In Busan, Dr. Yuna Kim was in her laboratory when the walls started shaking. She grabbed her research files and ran outside. The sky was filled with alien fighters. They moved like silver insects, fast and deadly. People were screaming and running in every direction. Yuna's phone rang. It was her colleague from the Government Research Center. Yuna listened carefully. The aliens are called the Vrakesh. They've conquered 400 worlds. We need you at the Emergency Command Center now. She started running toward her car. Behind her, a building exploded. The heat wave knocked her forward. She got up, bleeding from her forehead, and kept running. By the end of the first day, every major city was under Vrakesh control. Their soldiers walked through the streets in heavy armor. They were tall, almost 3 meters high, with gray skin and 4 arms. They didn't speak to humans. They just shot anyone who resisted. Commander Hyun Park was in Daegu when the invasion started. He was a veteran soldier, 45 years old with scars from 3 wars. But he had never seen anything like this. His unit was destroyed in the first attack. He gathered the survivors, 23 soldiers out of 200, and led them into the mountains. We can't fight them head-on, Hyun told his people, but we can make them bleed. We hide, we learn, we strike when they don't expect it. In the ruined cities, the Vrakesh set up broadcast stations. A voice spoke in perfect Korean, Chinese, English, every human language. People of Earth, you have lost. Your military is gone. Your weapons are destroyed. Surrender now and you will live as workers in the Vrakesh Empire. Resist and you will die. You have 24 hours to decide. On a rooftop in Incheon, 22-year-old Sora Choi listened to the broadcast. She was a university student just 3 days ago. Now her parents were dead. Her home was destroyed and alien soldiers controlled her city. She looked at the rifle she had taken from a dead soldier. She didn't know how to use it properly. But she would learn. Surrender, she whispered to herself. They don't know us very well. Junho reached the underground command center beneath Seoul. It was a secret facility built deep in the mountains. Hyun was already there with his survivors. Yuna arrived an hour later, still covered in dust and blood. Report, Junho said, though he already knew it was bad. 72 hours since first contact, a young officer said. Global military forces are at 15% capacity. Major cities occupied. Civilian casualties estimated at 40 million. The Vrakesh have complete air and space superiority. The room fell silent. These were numbers beyond any war in human history. Yuna stepped forward. I've been studying their soldiers. I managed to scan 3 of them before I escaped. There's something interesting in their biology. They have a weakness. But what kind of weakness? Junho asked. Their nervous system is incredibly efficient, but it's also rigid. They evolved as apex predators on their homeworld. They're built to dominate. But that means they have no adaptation for prolonged stress or resistance. If we can find a way to keep fighting, to never submit, their psychology might crack before ours does. Hyun laughed bitterly. So your plan is to be stubborn? To just keep fighting until they get tired? Yes, Yuna said simply. Exactly that. Every species they conquered surrendered within weeks. We need to show them that humans don't surrender. The next day, the Vrakesh deadline passed. No human governments surrendered. There were no governments left to surrender. Instead, the Vrakesh received thousands of attacks. Small groups hitting their patrols, snipers shooting their soldiers, bombs destroying their supply depots. In every city, humans fought back. They had no chance of winning direct battles, but they didn't fight direct battles. They hid in sewers and ruined buildings and forests. They struck fast and disappeared. Sora joined a resistance cell in Incheon. There were 12 people in her group, all civilians. A teacher taught them how to make explosives. A chef showed them how to survive on almost nothing. They attacked a Vrakesh patrol on the third day. 2 aliens died before the others could react. The humans ran into the subway tunnels and vanished. Supreme Overseer Thralix commanded the Vrakesh forces from his flagship above Earth. He was confused. Every species they had conquered followed the same pattern. First shock, then resistance, then negotiation, then surrender. It took 3 weeks on average, but Earth was different. It had been 3 weeks and the attacks were increasing. His soldiers reported that humans were learning their tactics, adapting to their weapons, finding their weak points. This was not supposed to happen. Increase compliance protocols, Thralix ordered. Public executions. Destroy food supplies. Show them the cost of resistance. But when the Vrakesh executed prisoners in city squares, more humans joined the resistance. When they destroyed food warehouses, humans learned to grow food in hidden places. Every brutal tactic made humans angrier, more determined. Junho coordinated resistance cells across the globe from the underground command center. He used old radio systems that the Vrakesh couldn't track easily. Every night he broadcast the same message. We are still here. We are still fighting. Never surrender. Yuna worked day and night studying Vrakesh technology and biology. Every piece of equipment they captured went to her laboratory. She was learning how their weapons worked, how their armor functioned, how their bodies could be hurt. Hyun trained new fighters in the mountains. Civilians came to him with nothing but anger and hope. He turned them into guerrilla soldiers. He taught them that they couldn't match Vrakesh strength, but they could match their determination. 6 weeks after the invasion, something changed. A Vrakesh soldier was captured alive during a raid. Yuna questioned him through a translator device. Why do you fight? The soldier asked. You cannot win. We have destroyed stronger species. Because we're human, Yuna answered. We don't know how to give up. The soldier looked at her with something that might have been fear. Your species is broken. You should be dead or obedient. But you are neither. This is wrong. That night, Yuna reported to Junho. I think we're doing more than just surviving. I think we're confusing them. They've never seen prey that fights back this hard. It's affecting their morale. Junho allowed himself a small smile. Good. Let's make them more confused. Across Earth, in 1,000 hidden places, humans sharpened their weapons and prepared for another day of resistance. They had lost the war in the first hour, but they refused to accept that loss, and that refusal was about to change everything. 6 months had passed since the sky turned red. The Vrakesh controlled every major city on Earth, but they controlled nothing else. The mountains belonged to the resistance. The forests were full of human fighters. Even the cities, despite alien patrols, were never truly safe for the invaders. Taeyang Nam was 24 years old and had never held a gun. He didn't need to. His weapons were computers and communication networks. Before the invasion, he was a security engineer. Now he was the most wanted human on the planet. He sat in a hidden room beneath the ruins of Gwangju, surrounded by salvaged computer equipment. His fingers flew across the keyboard. On his screen, Vrakesh military communications flashed in alien symbols. He had learned to read their language in 3 months. Now he was inside their network. Got it, he whispered. He sent out a coded message to resistance cells across Asia. Vrakesh supply convoy moving through Sector 7 tomorrow at dawn. 12 vehicles, minimal air support. 200 miles away, Hyun received the message. He gathered his fighters, now numbering over 300. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were ghosts. They knew every valley, every cave, every hidden path in their territory. At dawn, the convoy rolled through a mountain pass. Hyun's people attacked from above. Explosives destroyed the first and last vehicles, trapping the convoy. Then rockets stolen from Vrakesh armories rained down. The battle lasted 7 minutes. Every Vrakesh soldier died. The humans took their weapons and disappeared before reinforcements arrived. In a hospital bunker under Seoul, Dr. Hana Song worked without rest. She was 29 and had been a surgeon before the invasion. Now she treated wounded fighters with whatever medical supplies they could steal or make. Another one, a fighter said, carrying in a wounded woman. Vrakesh plasma burn on her leg. Hana examined the wound. Vrakesh weapons burned differently than anything human-made. The tissue damage was severe, but she had learned how to treat it. She had learned many things in 6 months. She saved the woman's leg. As the fighter recovered, Hana thought about what Yuna had told her last week. The Vrakesh were showing signs of stress. Their soldiers were making mistakes. Their tactics were becoming desperate. In Busan, Wu Jin hammered metal in a hidden workshop. He was 35, a former shipyard engineer. Now he made weapons from scraps. His latest creation was a rocket launcher built from Vrakesh parts and human ingenuity. It was ugly, but it worked. We're not matching their technology, he explained to young fighters who came to learn. We're making our technology match our needs. They have power armor. We make armor-piercing rounds. They have shields. We make electromagnetic pulse weapons. For every advantage they have, we find an answer. The Vrakesh were learning that occupying Earth was different from conquering it. Supreme Overseer Thralix received reports every day. Each one was worse than the last. Patrol in Sector 9 wiped out. Supply base destroyed. Communications tower sabotaged. 17 soldiers missing, presumed captured or dead. Thralix studied the reports with growing frustration. In his 400 years of military service, he had conquered 60 worlds personally. None had resisted like this. None had adapted this fast. Increase breaking protocols, he ordered. Execute 10 prisoners for every soldier we lose. Destroy civilian food stores. Make them understand the cost of resistance, but the breaking protocols didn't work. When the Vrakesh executed prisoners in public, more humans picked up weapons. When they destroyed food, humans found new ways to grow and hide their supplies. When they bombed residential areas, the survivors became fighters. Yuna studied this phenomenon in her laboratory. She had access to all resistance intelligence, every report from every cell. A pattern was emerging. They don't understand us, she told Junho during a strategy meeting. Their psychology is based on dominance hierarchies. In their species, the strong dominate and the weak submit. That's how their society works. That's how they think every society works. But we're different, Junho said. Yes, when we're threatened, we don't submit. We get angry. We fight harder. They see this as irrational behavior because in their worldview it is irrational. A weaker creature should always submit to a stronger one. But humans evolve differently. We value things like freedom and dignity more than safety. They can't comprehend that. Sora Choi had become a different person in 6 months. The scared university student was gone. In her place was a skilled fighter who had killed 17 Vrakesh soldiers. She led her cell of 12 fighters with cold efficiency. Tonight they were planting explosives on a Vrakesh command post in Incheon. Sora moved through shadows like smoke. She had learned patience, silence, and most importantly, she had learned to be absolutely ruthless. The explosives detonated at midnight. The command post collapsed. In the chaos, Sora's team attacked the survivors with precision. They took one prisoner, a Vrakesh officer, and vanished into the tunnels. The prisoner was brought to Yuna for interrogation. Through a translator, she asked him questions. But what interested her most was what he said without being asked. You should all be dead, the officer said. His voice shook. Or broken. Or obedient. Why are you still fighting? Don't you understand you've lost? Have we? Yuna asked calmly. Look at your world. We control everything. We have orbital superiority, ground superiority. We outnumber you. We have better weapons. He stopped. His forearms were trembling. You're afraid, Yuna said softly. No, we are Vrakesh. We do not fear. You do. I can see it. You're terrified of us. The officer said nothing. But Yuna had her answer. She reported to Junho immediately. They're breaking. Not us, them. Their entire military doctrine is based on shock and submission. They hit hard, the enemy surrenders, they occupy peacefully. But we won't surrender. Every day we fight is a day their doctrine fails. It's causing psychological stress at every level of their command structure. Junho considered this. Can we use it? Yes. I'm working with Taeyang on a psychological warfare program. If we can broadcast certain information into their communication networks, we can amplify their stress. The program launched 2 weeks later. Taeyang hacked into Vrakesh military channels and played recordings. Captured Vrakesh soldiers talking about their fear. Statistics showing increasing casualties. Lists of bases destroyed. And most effective of all, simple footage of humans fighting back. Never stopping, never surrendering. The effect was immediate. Vrakesh soldiers started making more mistakes. Some refused orders. A few even deserted their posts. The iron discipline of the Vrakesh military was showing cracks. Minho Kang was 27 and had been a retail manager before the invasion. He had no military training, no combat experience. But he had something else. He understood people. He could talk to anyone, inspire anyone, organize anyone. Under his leadership, 3 resistance cells in Daejeon merged into one coordinated force. Then 5 cells, then 12. Within 3 months, Minho commanded 2,000 fighters. They called him the Unconquerable One because he never retreated, never surrendered, never even considered defeat. "We're not trying to win battles," Minho told his commanders. "We're trying to win time. Every day we survive is a day we learn more, grow stronger, and they grow weaker. Time is on our side." In orbit above Earth, Thralix received a communication from Vrakesh High Command. The message was brief and harsh. "Compliance protocols have failed. Earth remains in active resistance after 6 months. This is unprecedented. Submit new strategy immediately or face command review." Thralix felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. His career, his honor, his position, all depended on breaking human resistance. But humans wouldn't break. He made a decision. "Prepare extermination protocols. If they won't submit, we'll eliminate them completely. Notify High Command of strategy change." When Yuna intercepted this communication through Taeyang's network, she smiled grimly. "They're escalating because they're losing. This is good for us." "Good?" Yunyo stared at her. "They're planning genocide." "Yes, but genocide requires commitment, resources, and most importantly, morale. Their soldiers are already breaking. Ordering them to commit complete extermination will break them faster. Many will refuse. Some will defect. We just need to survive the initial assault and their military will collapse from within." She was right. When Thralix ordered full extermination protocols, 30% of his officers requested transfer off Earth. 20% simply refused the orders. And 5% secretly contacted human resistance with offers to defect. The Vrakesh Empire, which had stood for 2,000 years, was discovering that humans were different from any prey they had ever hunted, and that difference was destroying them from the inside out. Hana treated a wounded Vrakesh defector in her hospital bunker. As she worked, the alien soldier spoke through a translator. "We were taught that we are apex predators. That domination is natural. But you humans, you are something else. You are prey that hunts back. You are weak, but you never submit. You break every rule we understand, and it terrifies us." Hana bandaged his wounds carefully. "Maybe your rules were wrong," she said simply. 1 year. Earth had been fighting for 1 full year. The planet was scarred, the cities were ruins, and 40 million humans were dead. But the Vrakesh Empire was dying. Nari Bey was 33 and had worked in military intelligence before the invasion. Now she was doing something impossible. She was walking through a Vrakesh command center dressed in stolen armor, carrying forged identification, and nobody suspected a thing. She had spent 6 months learning everything about Vrakesh military structure. Their ranks, their protocols, their body language. She had surgery to implant a voice modulator that could mimic their language perfectly, and now she was stealing their most secret intelligence files. "Officer Nari, report to communications," a Vrakesh commander said as she passed. "Acknowledged," she replied in flawless Vrakesh. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. She walked to the communications center, downloaded the files she needed, and walked out. Nobody stopped her. That night, Junho read the intelligence files Nari had stolen. His hands shook as he turned the pages. "The Vrakesh Empire is recalling forces from 89 worlds to deal with Earth," he said to the assembled resistance leaders. "Their entire military structure is focused on us. But more importantly, other occupied species are starting rebellions. They see us fighting and they're inspired." Minho stood up. "Then we need to hit them harder. Show everyone that the Vrakesh can be beaten. We need a symbol," Sora added. "A victory so clear that nobody can deny it." Yuna spread a map on the table. "Their main command ship in orbit. The flagship where Thralix commands from. If we could destroy it." "Impossible," Hyun said. "We have no orbital capability." "We do now," a voice said from the doorway. Do-Hyun Lim walked in, a 30-year-old pilot with a dangerous smile. "We've been stealing their fighters for 3 months. We have 37 of them hidden across the country, and I've trained 85 pilots to fly them." Junho stared at him. "You're saying we have an air force?" "Not just airspace, those fighters can reach orbit." "I know because I've done it twice already." The plan came together quickly. 40 Vrakesh fighters, all stolen and modified, would launch from hidden locations simultaneously. They would coordinate through Taeyang's encrypted network. Their target, Thralix's flagship. But the real attack would happen on the ground. While the Vrakesh focused on the orbital assault, resistance cells across every occupied city would launch coordinated uprisings. It was a desperate gamble. If it failed, the resistance would be crippled. Yuna Shin was 37 and had been a psychology professor. Now she ran psychological warfare operations. While others prepared weapons, she prepared minds. She broadcasted messages into Vrakesh communication networks. Not threats, something more subtle. Recordings of Vrakesh soldiers talking about doubt. Statistics showing the cost of occupying Earth. Philosophical questions about whether conquest was still worth it. I'm not trying to scare them, Yuna explained. I'm trying to make them think. Fear can motivate, but doubt destroys from within. The attack launched at dawn. 40 stolen fighters screamed into the sky from hidden locations across 3 continents. Vrakesh orbital defenses scrambled to respond. They had never expected humans to reach space. Do-hyun led the assault. He had flown cargo ships before the war. Now he flew a Vrakesh fighter like he was born in it. Plasma fire filled the space around him. 3 human fighters exploded, then 7. But the rest pressed forward. All units, focus fire on the flagship's shield generators, Do-hyun commanded. We take those down, the ship is vulnerable. On the ground, chaos erupted in every city simultaneously. Millions of humans who had been hiding, surviving, waiting, they all attacked at once. Vrakesh garrisons were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Soldiers who had been hunting resistance fighters suddenly found themselves surrounded. In Seoul, Minho led 10,000 fighters through the streets. They moved like a flood, unstoppable and fierce. Vrakesh soldiers fired into the crowds, but for every human that fell, 5 more took their place. A Vrakesh commander broadcast a surrender offer. Stop fighting and we will show mercy. Minho's response was broadcast across all channels. We don't want your mercy. We want you gone. In orbit, the human fighters broke through the defensive line. Half of them were destroyed, but the survivors reached the flagship. Do-hyun personally fired the shot that destroyed the main shield generator. All units fire everything, he shouted. Missiles, plasma bolts, and kinetic rounds slammed into the flagship. The massive ship tried to maneuver, but it was too big, too slow. Explosions rippled across its hull. Then, in a flash of white light, the ship's reactor went critical. Do-hyun watched the flagship break apart. Target destroyed. Thralix is dead. On Earth, every human with a radio heard the news. The sound that followed was not celebration. It was a roar of pure determination. The resistance surged forward with renewed fury. By nightfall, 12 major cities were back in human control. Vrakesh forces were in full retreat, and across the galaxy on every world the Vrakesh occupied, people heard about what happened at Earth. Seung-ho was 42, a former diplomat. While others fought with weapons, he fought with words. 3 days after Thralix's death, he received an unexpected message. It came from a Vrakesh general named Krathal. We wish to discuss terms, the message said. Seung met the general in neutral territory, a ruined building in Jeju. Krathal was old for a Vrakesh, with scars covering his gray skin. I opposed this invasion from the start, Krathal said. I told High Command that Earth was different. They didn't listen. Now our empire is collapsing. Why are you telling me this? Seung asked. Because I want to stop the killing. My forces will withdraw from sectors 7 through 12. In exchange, I want safe passage for my soldiers. Seung considered this carefully. I need to consult with others, but I think we can work something out. Over the next month, more Vrakesh commanders made similar offers. The empire was fracturing. Some wanted peace. Some wanted to keep fighting. But nobody knew who was in charge anymore. Jiwoo Han was 26 and had been an engineering student. Now she led a team of scientists studying captured Vrakesh technology. They had made breakthrough after breakthrough, reverse engineering alien weapons and defenses. We're not just matching their technology anymore, Jiwoo reported to Junho. We're improving it. Look at this. She showed him a prototype shield generator, built from Vrakesh components but redesigned with human innovation. It was smaller, more efficient, and more powerful than the original. We're learning faster than they can adapt, she said with pride. Yuna published her complete research on Vrakesh psychology. The document spread across resistance networks and eventually reached other alien species through Taeyang's broadcasts. The Vrakesh evolved as apex predators, the report explained. Their entire psychology is built on dominance and submission. They conquered 400 worlds because every species they encountered fit this pattern. But humans evolved differently. We developed cooperation, tool use, and abstract thinking as survival strategies. We don't have submission instincts the way other species do. When threatened, our stress response is fight, not flight or freeze. This fundamental difference means that standard Vrakesh pacification protocols don't work on humans. In fact, they have the opposite effect. The report concluded with a prediction. The Vrakesh Empire will collapse within 6 months. Not because humans are stronger, but because the Empire's entire structure is based on assumptions that don't apply to us. We are the anomaly that breaks their system. She was right. Across the Empire, subject species read the report and understood. If humans could resist, so could they. Rebellion sparked on world after world. The Vrakesh military tried to contain them, but they were spread too thin, too demoralized, too confused. In the wreckage of what had been Vrakesh High Command, the ruling council met in emergency session. The debate was fierce. We need to exterminate Earth completely, some argued. Make an example of them. We can't, others replied. Half our forces refuse to fight there anymore. And even if we could, the other subject worlds would unite against us. Then what do we do? Nobody had an answer. On Earth, Junho stood on a hill overlooking Seoul. Parts of the city were still burning. But the Vrakesh flag was gone, replaced by the blue and white of Korea, the stars and stripes of America, and dozens of other human flags flying together. Yuna joined him. Nari's intelligence suggests the Vrakesh will sue for peace within weeks. We won, Junho said quietly. We actually won. No, Yuna corrected gently. We survived, and that survival broke them. There's a difference. Hyun approached them, limping from a recent wound. Reports coming in from across the planet. Vrakesh forces are withdrawing from every continent. Some are surrendering. Some are just leaving. It's over. Sora was nearby listening. At 23, she had seen more death than most soldiers twice her age. Is it really over? She asked. The fighting on Earth? Yes, Junho said. But the Vrakesh Empire is falling apart. Other worlds are rising up. We started something bigger than just our freedom. That night, in 1,000 refugee camps, bunkers, and hidden bases across Earth, humans celebrated. They had lost so much, but they had not lost themselves. They had not surrendered. They had not broken. And in doing so, they had broken an empire that thought itself unbreakable. 18 months after the invasion began, the Vrakesh Empire was dying. The death was not quick or clean. It was messy, chaotic, and painful. Sung-Oh sat across from 5 Vrakesh generals in what used to be the United Nations building in Geneva. The building was damaged, with holes in the roof and broken windows, but it still stood. Like humanity itself. Your empire is collapsing, Shung said calmly. 89 worlds in rebellion. Your high command is fighting a civil war. Your economy is bankrupt from trying to contain Earth. Why are we still talking about terms? You've already lost. General Krathal, who had become the leader of the moderate Vrakesh faction, nodded slowly. You are correct. We have lost. But the question is, what happens next? Do we all die in pointless fighting, or do we find a way forward? That depends on what you're offering, Shung replied. Complete withdrawal from Earth and 40 other worlds. Reparations for damages, technology transfers, and help containing the hardliners who still want to fight. Shung made notes. And in exchange? Mercy. Help for our soldiers who are stranded. Protection from retribution. And perhaps guidance. Your species understands something we don't. How to build a society without dominance. The negotiations took 3 weeks. Not everyone on Earth was happy with the idea of peace. Many wanted complete destruction of the Vrakesh. But Junho argued for restraint. If we destroy them completely, we become what we fought against, he said in a broadcast to all resistance cells. We fought for freedom, not vengeance. There's a difference. While diplomats talked, Yuna Shin expanded her psychological operations. But now her target wasn't Vrakesh soldiers. It was Vrakesh society. She worked with Vrakesh defectors to understand their culture, their history, their philosophy. Then she began broadcasting new ideas into their communication networks. Ideas about cooperation instead of domination, about mutual benefit instead of conquest, about building instead of taking. I'm not destroying their culture, Yuna explained to critics. I'm offering them a new way to think about themselves. They can choose to accept it or not. Many did accept it, young Vrakesh especially, who had grown up hearing about the invincible empire only to watch it crumble against human resistance. They questioned everything their elders had taught them. Ji-Wuhan's technology centers were working non-stop. Earth now had access to advanced Vrakesh technology, and human engineers were improving it rapidly. Look at this. Jiwoo showed Junho a new weapon system. Rakesh plasma rifles are powerful but inefficient. We've redesigned the power system. 50% more shots per battery, 30% better accuracy. We're taking their technology and making it better. How? Junho asked. Because we have to think creatively. They never did. When you're an apex predator, you don't need to innovate much. But humans have always had to think our way out of problems. It's our survival strategy. Hanasong's medical teams were treating wounded from both sides now. Rakesh soldiers with psychological trauma, human fighters with physical injuries, civilians from dozens of species who had been caught in the chaos. One day a Rakesh soldier asked her, "Why do you help us? We tried to destroy you." Hana bandaged his wounds carefully. Because healing is what we do. If we only helped people who deserved it, we wouldn't be much better than you were. The soldier thought about this for a long time. Your species is very strange, he finally said. Yes, Hana agreed. We are. Taeyangnam had expanded his network to cover half the galaxy. His encrypted communication system connected resistance movements on 200 worlds. The Vrakesh had called themselves an empire. Taeyang was building something bigger, a network of free peoples. Information wants to be free, he told his team of hackers and engineers. The Vrakesh controlled their empire by controlling information. We're going to make that impossible ever again. His broadcast reached everywhere. News of Earth's resistance, updates on rebellions across the empire, technical information about Vrakesh weaknesses, and most importantly, hope. Nari Bay was still gathering intelligence, but now she was hunting a different enemy. The hardline Vrakesh faction had refused to accept peace. They were preparing a final assault on Earth, planning to use weapons of mass destruction. She infiltrated their command structure again, risking her life to get close to their leadership. What she discovered made her blood run cold. They're going to use planet-killer weapons, she reported to Junho. Devices that can crack a planet's crust. They plan to destroy Earth completely rather than accept defeat. When? Junho demanded. 2 weeks, maybe less, the race was on. Junho coordinated with every military asset Earth had. Do-hyun prepared every fighter and pilot. Minho rallied ground forces for one final battle, but they all knew it might not be enough. Then help came from an unexpected source. Moderate Vrakesh forces, led by Krathal, attacked the hardliners. The Vrakesh Civil War reached its peak in a massive space battle above what used to be the Empire's capital world. Krathal broadcast his message to both sides. I will not let my species become monsters. I will not let us destroy an entire world because we cannot accept defeat. This ends now. The battle lasted 3 days. Hardline Vrakesh forces fought desperately, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The moderate faction, fighting alongside ships from rebel worlds and even some human fighters, won decisively. The planet-killer weapons were destroyed. The hardline leadership was captured or killed. And the Vrakesh Empire, as it had existed for 2,000 years, officially ended. In the aftermath, Seung worked tirelessly to build something new. The Galactic Cooperative Assembly, he called it. Not an empire, not a conquest, but a voluntary association of free worlds. Every species gets an equal voice, he explained to the first assembly. Representatives from Earth, moderate Vrakesh, and 73 formerly oppressed species sat together. No dominance, no submission, just cooperation for mutual benefit. Many were skeptical. Empires had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Could something different actually work? Look at what we achieved together, Shung argued. Humans resisted impossible odds. Vrakesh moderates fought their own people for what was right. Rebel species coordinated across light years. We've already proven cooperation works. The vote was close, but the assembly was established. Earth became its first capital, not because humans demanded it, but because everyone agreed it was fitting. The world that refused to break would be the foundation of a new galactic order. Junho retired from military service. He was 40 years old and felt 80. He had led humanity through its darkest time, but he was tired of war. I'm going to become an ambassador, he told Yuna. Travel to other worlds. Teach them what we learned about defense and resistance. Make sure nobody else suffers what we suffered. That's good, Yuna said. I'm starting an institute. Interspecies psychology. If we'd understood each other better, maybe this war never would have happened. Sora was writing a book about the resistance. At 24, she was already known across the galaxy as the fighter who never stopped. But she wanted people to remember not just the fighting, but the cost. 40 million humans died, she wrote. We won, but the price was enormous. This book is for them, for everyone who didn't survive to see peace. Hyun trained new soldiers, but with a different purpose now. We're not teaching conquest, he told his students. We're teaching defense, how to protect your home, how to resist tyranny, and most importantly, how to do it without becoming tyrants yourselves. Minho returned to civilian life, though he remained famous as the unconquerable one. He used that fame to help rebuild Earth, organizing volunteers, coordinating reconstruction efforts, and ensuring refugees had homes. Taeyang continued his work expanding the Free Information Network. No government, no empire, no authority would ever again control what people could know or say. He made sure of that. Nari headed the new Galactic Intelligence Service, not a spy agency for one species, but a cooperative effort to prevent future invasions and conflicts. Information prevents wars, she said. If we know what's happening, we can stop problems before they become catastrophes. Jiwoo's technology centers became universities, teaching species from across the galaxy. Humans shared their engineering innovations freely, and learned from other species in return. Hana's hospitals expanded to 50 worlds, providing medical care to everyone regardless of species or history. She personally trained thousands of doctors and nurses in the new interspecies medicine. Yunha's psychological work helped countless beings recover from trauma, both Vrakesh soldiers dealing with guilt and civilians recovering from oppression. 3 years after the invasion began, Krathel addressed the Galactic Cooperative Assembly. He was old now, his gray skin lined with age and weariness. I must speak truth, he said. My species committed terrible crimes. We conquered. We dominated. We broke countless civilizations. We believed this was natural, even good. We were wrong. He paused, his forearms trembling. The Vrakesh learned a hard lesson. We learned that conquest is not strength. Domination is not natural law, and refusing to submit is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. He looked directly at the human delegation. We tried to break humanity. Instead, we broke ourselves upon them. And in that breaking, we discovered something we never knew existed, the possibility of being something other than predators. 3 years after the red sky, Earth was green again. Not everywhere. The scars of war would take generations to heal completely. But in many places, life was returning. Trees grew in the ruins of old battlefields. Children played in parks that had once been combat zones. And humans looked to the stars not with fear, but with hope. Junho stood on the balcony of the Galactic Cooperative Assembly building in Seoul. The city had been rebuilt, mixing old Korean architecture with new designs influenced by dozens of alien species. It was beautiful in a way no purely human city had ever been. Ambassador Lee, a voice called. It was Krathal, walking toward him with the slow dignity of his advanced age. I wanted to speak with you before the ceremony. Of course, Junho said. Today they would dedicate the memorial to all who died in the war. 40 million humans and nearly 10 million Vrakesh. The numbers still hurt. I have a confession, Krathal said. When I first met humans, I thought you were simply lucky. Lucky to have good terrain for guerrilla warfare. Lucky that our tactics didn't work. But I was wrong. You weren't lucky. You were something we had never encountered. What was that? Junho asked. Unbreakable. Not because you were strong, but because breaking was simply not something you would accept. No matter the cost, no matter the logic, you refused, and that refusal changed everything. They walked together to the memorial site. Thousands had gathered, humans, Vrakesh, and beings from hundreds of other worlds. The memorial was a simple black wall with every name carved into it. 40 million names on one side, 10 million on the other. Yuna gave the main speech. Her Institute of Interspecies Psychology was now the leading center for understanding how different species thought and communicated. We built this memorial with the names facing each other, she said, because we need to remember that war hurts everyone. There are no winners in war, just survivors. We survived. They survived. And now we must build something better together. She paused, looking at the massive crowd. The Vrakesh tried to break humanity. But the truth is more complex. We were all broken by this war. Humans lost millions. Vrakesh lost their empire and their certainty. But from that breaking, something new could grow. We learned that different doesn't mean enemy. Strong doesn't mean domination. and survival doesn't require submission. After the ceremony, Junho traveled to what had been the Vrakesh homeworld. It was now called New Krath, renamed after the general who had chosen peace over genocide. He was there to teach at their military academy. The students were young Vrakesh, learning a completely new way of thinking about warfare. Not conquest but defense, not domination but protection. Why did humans never surrender? One student asked. Junho thought carefully about his answer. Because surrender meant accepting that our freedom, our dignity, our right to exist as ourselves could be taken away. We couldn't accept that. Not because we're special or superior, but because those things are so fundamental to who we are, that losing them would mean we weren't human anymore. But you could have all died, another student said. Yes. And many of us did die, but we believed some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of them. The students were silent, trying to understand this alien concept. Their species had been built on the idea that survival was the only thing that mattered. Humans had shown them something different. Sora's book, We Never Broke, was now required reading in schools across 800 worlds. She was only 27, but already considered one of the most important historians of her generation. She was on a book tour, speaking at universities and community centers. Everywhere she went, people asked the same question. How did you keep going? We didn't have a choice, Sora would answer. Or rather, we did have a choice and we chose to fight. Every single day, every single person made that choice. Some chose to fight with weapons. Others fought by surviving, by helping, by refusing to give up hope. All of those choices mattered. Taeyang's free network now connected every civilized world in the known galaxy. Information flowed freely, and no government could control it. There were problems with this: misinformation, propaganda, harmful content. But Taeyang believed the alternative was worse. The Vrakesh Empire controlled information for 2,000 years, he said in an interview. That control let them convince people that conquest was natural, that resistance was futile, that submission was the only option. We will never let that happen again. Free information means free people. Hana's hospitals treated patients from 900 different species now. Her medical teams had made breakthrough after breakthrough by combining knowledge from different worlds. Humans have good pattern recognition, she explained to a class of medical students from 12 different species. Vrakesh have excellent surgical precision. Trell have deep understanding of biochemistry. Norn have unmatched diagnostic abilities. Alone, each species is limited. Together, we can heal almost anything. One of her patients was a former Vrakesh soldier named Thralix, named after the Supreme Overseer who had died in the war. He suffered from severe psychological trauma. I killed humans, he told Hana during therapy. I followed orders. I thought we were right. Now I understand we were monsters. You were a soldier following your culture's teachings, Hana said gently. That doesn't excuse what happened. But understanding why it happened is the first step to making sure it never happens again. How can you forgive us? He asked. I can't forgive on behalf of the dead, but I can choose not to hate. There's a difference. Minho had used his fame to start a foundation helping refugees from all the wars caused by the Vrakesh Empire's collapse. Millions of beings were displaced, homeless, traumatized. His foundation provided food, shelter, and most importantly, hope. People call me the unconquerable one, he said at a fundraising event. But the truth is everyone is conquerable. We all have limits. The key is to keep going even when you reach those limits. To get up one more time, then you're knocked down. Wu Jin's engineering workshops had become innovation centers on 30 worlds. He taught his philosophy everywhere. Adapt, improve, never accept that there's only one way to solve a problem. The Vrakesh had better technology than us, he told his students. But we had better flexibility. We could look at a problem and think of 20 solutions. They could think of 2. In the end, that made all the difference. Hyun was 70 now, training his last generation of students. He had spent 25 years teaching defensive warfare to species across the galaxy. Remember, he told them, defense is not the same as pacifism. Sometimes you must fight. But fight for freedom, not conquest. Fight to protect, not to dominate. And always, always remember the cost of war. Every person who dies is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. Nari's intelligence service had prevented 3 wars and stopped 7 attempted genocides in 3 years. Her network of agents from hundreds of species shared information freely, working to stop conflicts before they started. We can't prevent all violence, she admitted to the assembly, but we can prevent most wars. Wars usually start because of misunderstanding, fear, or lies. If we provide truth, understanding, and open communication, most conflicts can be resolved peacefully. Yuna's psychological research had revolutionized how species understood each other. Her most famous paper was titled The Myth of Universal Nature. For millennia, the paper explained, conquerors have claimed that domination is natural law, that the strong should rule the weak, that this is how the universe works. But humans prove this wrong. Cooperation is just as natural as competition. Compassion is just as valid as cruelty. There is no single natural way for intelligent beings to organize themselves. We have choices. Sung, now in his 60s, looked over the Galactic Cooperative Assembly with satisfaction. 847 species were now members. Decisions were made democratically. No single species could dominate the others. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments, disagreements, sometimes even threats to leave the assembly. But it worked. It actually worked. The key, Sung told his staff, is that everyone remembers what the alternative looks like. They remember the Vrakesh Empire. They remember the wars. They remember the suffering. That memory keeps us honest. 50 years after the invasion, most of the original resistance leaders were old or dead, but their legacy lived on. In military academies across the galaxy, students studied the Earth Doctrine, how a weaker force can defeat a stronger one through resilience, adaptation, and refusal to surrender. In schools, children learned about the human paradox, how characteristics that seemed like weaknesses, emotion, stubbornness, irrational hope, could become strengths in the right circumstances. In therapy centers, psychologists used techniques developed by understanding why Vrakesh psychology broke under human resistance. In government buildings, leaders referenced the Galactic Cooperative Assembly as proof that cooperation could work on a massive scale. And on 200 worlds, statues stood of the resistance leaders. Not as conquerors or heroes, but as ordinary people who refused to give up. Hyunhyo with his tactical genius, Yuna with her research files, Hyun with his determination, Sora with her courage, Taeyang with his networks, all of them immortalized not for what they destroyed but for what they preserved, freedom.